Fantastic Four. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Always happy to see you guys here, and welcome to my review of The Fantastic Four First Steps. This makes the fourth in the Fantastic Four franchise and the 37th of the MCU films, if I'm not mistaken. This is a franchise of films that I have a little bit of a rocky relationship with. I've never seen that original film with Michael McCormick. Is that his name? I don't even know. From the 80s or 90s. Never seen that one. I heard it was just way too goofy and silly, and I'm like, no thanks. Growing up in my teenage years, I have seen the 2005 film and its sequel, Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. I always thought that those were okay, but the main reason why I always thought that was two words: Jessica Alba. But you know, I'm older now, so just move on. Be professional. And then that awful, god-awful 2015 film came out with Michael B. Jordan, Fat Four Stick, when this new one came out. I always wanted to refer to it as Fat Four Stick, but we don't really need to say that about this, because it's actually way better than that 2015 POS. This one triumphed over that one, which is actually quite surprising given the rocky relationship I have with this franchise. With all that being said, rolling into this, I wasn't really expecting that much, but I knew it was a part of the MCU. But the way the MCU has been here lately, it's just not been that good, with a few exceptions with Guardians 3, Deadpool, and Wolverine. So I really wasn't expecting much, but I still had some sort of faith. It's never going to be at its peak as much as it was with Endgame, with that era. But I feel like this is the step in the right direction, especially after watching Thunderbolts, which I realize I never did the review for that on this channel, but I gotta say, I feel like it's going in the right direction, which I will bring that up here again in a minute. So what you have here is a film set on an entirely different Earth, separate from the MCU, to where you get this band of superheroes called the Fantastic Four, to where they are forced to go up against this godlike entity after an alien being called the Silver Surfer threatens the planet with impending death, which forces the Fantastic Four to save the planet. Again, going into this, I had no idea what I was expecting. I knew it was going to be a part of the MCU. I just didn't want another 2015 fiasco, especially the way that the MCU has been going. But I gotta say, after watching this new film, nothing like that other one. Nothing like that last one. And I feel comfortable enough to say, rest assured, you're definitely getting a lot better experience here. That's for sure. With that being said, starting off with the positives for the Fantastic Four First Steps, I do gotta say, I feel like that this is actually going in a better path, a better direction. I said before that even though I never reviewed Thunderbolts on this channel, even starting with that one, I felt like that kind of showed a better righteous path, that I could sense that they were going in a much better path with the MCU. Now, after watching Fantastic Four First Steps, I can honestly say with full confidence that this is exactly where it needs to go, where it needs to stay at. Now, I'm not saying that I'm hoping that it would get at its peak to where Avengers Endgame was. We're never going to see that. That's pretty much gone behind us. I feel like First Steps is its first steps. I feel like it's actually going in the right direction, and I feel like it's on a better path. Just like I said with Superman, with how they started the DC verse, how James Gunn and Peter Safran started the DC verse, I felt like with Fantastic Four First Steps, I hope it continues on down this path tonally. And you have a story here to where you don't really get an origin story, but I feel like you don't really need that because they've already explained it down to the bone with those other films, which didn't do as well. You don't really necessarily need an origin story instead of in context, which I think is better, especially since you've already seen it like 3 or 4 times before. Why poke the bear? I thought that that was a good choice that they did, where they just skipped straight to the meat of the bones and it just went on from there, and I thought it was a really good choice that they did it like that. You have a set of characters here to where you have Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I thought he killed it in this. He's a good actor. He's really good at what he does. I thought he nailed this part really good, and I thought they did a great casting choice with Pedro Pascal for this film. Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, the Invisible Girl, I thought nailed it. She really shines in this. I liked Vanessa Kirby ever since I seen her in the Mission Impossible films that she was in. I really thought that she nailed the character in this. There were certain story elements, none that I will get into because it's spoiler free here. I feel like I always need to say that, especially dealing with a Marvel film. But I will say this. There's a scene in there that reminded me so much, and I know this is going to be a weird comparison, but the scene I'm referring to in this film kind of reminded me of that speech that Bill Pullman, the president, gave in the original Independence Day. That's how it made me feel. It was that powerful. Maybe not to that peak that film was, but still. Just with that scene alone, I thought she nailed it. Again, I won't tell you what it's about. Go see it. As far as a character goes, I've never really found her that interesting, but Vanessa Kirby, she pretty much changed my mind on this character as a whole, especially with this film. Then you get Ebon Moss-Bachrach as the Thing, as Ben Grimm, to where since they've already established that they've already got their powers, you get this character to where he's like built as a rock, which is my favorite character, and I think a lot of people can agree with that is their favorite character too. To where you already have it established to where he's perfectly comfortable with himself. The only time that he actually does kind of look within him is when he's looking at the TV and they're talking about them when they went up in space, and he's looking at his own self. But other than that, he's perfectly fine with himself. I really did like that. I thought he nailed it in that part as well. And then Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch, as Johnny Storm. You get a much different interpretation with him in this than what Chris Evans did in those other films. To where in this, he plays it off as more of a thinker. He wants to be more like Reed Richards. Doesn't want to be like him, but he wants to help more. He wants to be more out there and be more active instead of just womanizing, gallivanting in a way like Chris Evans did. I thought he had more of an important part in this. The womanizer thing is still there. It kind of still peeks its head up in certain scenes, but it's a little bit more tamed. And I really did like that little character change in Johnny Storm. I even liked what they did with the Silver Surfer. Now, there's a bunch of comparisons to Rise of the Silver Surfer when you really dig down and think about it. But I like the way that they did this. You know, even though it's a female, and I know a bunch of people gets an uproar about that, but it is what it is. But I enjoyed her backstory. I thought they gave her a nice human touch. I've never thought of this character as a straight-up villain anyway, so I knew they were going to throw something in there like that, but I really did enjoy that. And again, it just added to its humanizing of these characters, especially with this alien character. You really get a good character-driven storytelling film to where it's very lighthearted, and again, going back to what I said about this is where I think the MCU should keep leading with in terms of those feel-good moments. And there's plenty here. It deals with family and the things that you do for each other. And I really did appreciate that. It was a good message all around that this film had. This is definitely a film that you could definitely take the whole entire family out to, and your kids and whoever else you want to bring. It's just one of those feel-good films that really moves you. And it's just something that's a bunch of emotions that I felt I have not felt in a while in an MCU film. Not since the Endgame days, the Infinity Saga days. And I really did appreciate that. Again, that's one of the many reasons why I think Marvel is on the right track. And I hope that it continues down this really great path, because I have a feeling that, and I'm not saying that this is the greatest comic book movie of this year. That goes to Superman for me. But if they keep on going down this path, I really do feel like that a bunch of the naysayers and everybody that's kind of given up, hopefully it'll win them back, or at least some of them back, because I feel like that's what a film of this tone could do, especially with its tone and with its comedic relief, which shocked me. Because the comedy in MCU films, or in films in general, but with the MCU film, since I'm talking about an MCU film, has actually been pretty good with Fantastic Four First Steps. And that was mainly from Joseph Quinn's character from Johnny Storm, to where you have a character that establishes himself as a womanizer, but instead of focusing on that part of him, he's more of like a jokester in this. And there's not enough of the funny banter between him and Ben Grimm, but just the dialogue that he gives. And this is the reason why I'm putting this in the positives, is because Joseph Quinn's portrayal of this character was actually quite funny. And I found myself chuckling quite a bit. It's another thing that this film achieved, was just its comedic relief just from that character alone. There was other characters that sort of achieved that as well, but not as much as Joseph Quinn.
You are going to be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth.
And again, that was surprising to me. Comedy has been dead on arrival, especially in the MCU, for me for a while. And it was kind of a relief finding something that worked finally, especially for the comedy. Even the running joke that involved the Thing, to where Johnny Storm keeps on egging them on, was actually done quite well, and I thought that was pretty clever within itself.
What time is it, Ben?
No.
What time is it, Ben?
No, Johnny.
Say it!
I don't wanna!
Say it!
Now, with that all said and done, there's still some problems, still some nitpicks that I just couldn't quite ignore, but they're very, very small. I did enjoy this film. It was definitely a lot better than those other interpretations of those other films that I've seen, but there's still some problems that this film had that I just could not ignore. One particular that kind of took me out of it. Diving into my mixed as I slowly ease into the problems that I have with this film, I didn't feel like there was enough action here, but there was some. But as much of an action junkie as I am, I just feel like it didn't have enough. It didn't have as much as I wanted it to. As much as I enjoyed the story and the film for what it was, a characterization of itself, I felt like the action sequences could have benefited it a little bit more. I felt like that they could have added a little bit more time to this film. This is the shortest of the MCU so far, other than Marvel's. I felt like if they'd have added at least 15 to 20 minutes and it just being action sequences, I probably would have been fine with it. And because of that, I felt like the film didn't flow as much as I wanted it to. There was some slow moments, but the reason why this is in the mix is because it's not that big of a deal, because I did enjoy the film for what it was. A family-friendly, character-driven, story-driven film with a lot of heart. But again, that lack of action, it just kind of got to me. It's just, again, one of those things that I just couldn't ignore. So it just had to be said. But again, as far as the action sequences goes, there was some moments. I just wish there could have been more. There could have been a little bit more there to scratch that adrenaline action junkie within myself. Moving on to the negatives. There was some questionable choices they made, particularly with the CGI, that made me question what I was really watching. Now, the thing that really stood out to me was Sue Storm's infant child. Now, there was some shots to where I could tell it was a real baby, but the shots that was CGI was so fake that it was just blatantly obvious that it was just pure messy, and it just felt like it was something that they just pieced together later on in post. So much so that with the wide-angled shots of somebody holding this infant child, to where you see something like this, like you can tell that this is real, this is real, this is me actually holding an actual remote. In the film, where it showed the infant being held, it didn't feel like it was authentic. It didn't feel like it was moving along with the person that was holding whatever it was to support what they were holding was a CGI character. It just looked so fake, and it just didn't look real at all. The movements didn't match, and it was just so blindly obvious that I just couldn't ignore it. It just really kind of took me out of the film. I'll just say it that way. It just really took me out, and again, it just looked like it was something that was pieced together later on in a hurry and a rush that it just didn't look real at all. There was no sort of authenticity about it. Even to the untrained eye, I'm pretty sure it didn't go unnoticed. Even though a lot of people don't look at films the way I do, still, it's so blatantly obvious that it's so fake, and just the movements and everything, how can it not go unnoticed? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people won't care, but it is what it is. It couldn't go unnoticed for me. And again, it just took me out of it just a little bit, but I digress. And last but not least, as much as I'm not a fan of how they portrayed Galactus in Rise of the Silver Surfer, making him a cloud, which was stupid within itself, I did find myself relieved knowing that they chose to anthropomorphize him in this film, to where you actually see a physical being of Galactus. But what I didn't really care for, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of kaiju films like Pacific Rim and Kong and Godzilla and all them, but the way that they portrayed the third act in this, it wasn't all that interesting. You just see Galactus traipsing around the streets of New York and doing his thing, trying to get to a destination, and then you have the Fantastic Four fighting him. To me, it didn't feel like there was much of a competition there. And it just got a little boring, and it got a little bit tedious. And to me, I just felt like I needed a little bit more. It just didn't feel like that much of a climactic justification. So that was a little disappointing. Again, as much as I'm actually happy to see Galactus, I just didn't really find that character, that villain, all that interesting and all that entertaining. You have this big, monstrous, godlike figure just traipsing around and not a care in the world, and he's just walking, and everybody's throwing everything they have at him, and then, like, nothing, and it's like, come on, give me something. I wish the Fantastic Four could have just at least built their own kaiju to fight him. That would have been a little bit more interesting. But anyway, that's my take on it, and just a little bit disappointing. But all in all, guys, I really enjoyed this film. It was so much better than the other renditions that we had. The Fantastic Four First Steps is definitely a step up, which is what they should name the next one. The Fantastic Four, Step Up. It was fun, it was exciting, and it was definitely something you should own. So, the Fantastic Four, First Steps. What was your thoughts on this? Have you seen it yet? Are you a fan of this one? Are you liking where the MCU is heading? Do you think that this is the better of how they've been going? Are you a fan of this Fantastic Four film, or are you a fan of the others? What was your thoughts of this franchise entirely, or are you not a fan of this? Are you one of those that gave up on the MCU and Fantastic Four a long time ago? Give me your comment down below and let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for clicking here and watching this. As always, I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing if you like what you see, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.